Thank you, Stephanie, for the introduction. Thank you to all of you for hosting me and these conversations that we are in. I want to begin with telling a story that Brené Brown tells about herself. When she goes forward and comes across a difficult situation at some point where she's frustrated with someone. And afterwards, she's asking people around, like, what do you think? And they say, you know, everybody's doing the best that they can. And she said, really? Really? Are they doing the best? And being the researcher that she is, she starts interviewing people as she's going through her day. Do you think people are doing the best that they can? Do you think that people are doing the best that they can? And by the time she gets home that evening and she meets her husband, Steve, who's in the kitchen, and Steve's a quieter temperament than Brené. And she said, Steve, do you think people are doing the best they can? And he pauses and looks out the window, thinks a bit, comes back and said, I honestly don't know. But here's what I do know, is that if I believe that people are doing the best they can, then I am a better for it. Beliefs are our operating system. We make beliefs, we inherit beliefs, they make us, and then we make the world from what we believe. But we can also investigate them, as Steve does, or as the Buddha instructed us to do. Don't take my word for it. Try it on for yourself. Does your life change? Do you change as a result of these beliefs? Or if you find yourself like Brené, with your hands on your hips, arguing with the way things are or the way you think they should be, maybe you just want to relax a bit and pause and go, I wonder. We can't be without believing. And for me, I believe that my purpose is to walk the path of wisdom. I've tried it. It's working for me. I'm going to try it some more. Still working for me. And to inspire and support others in doing the same. Trying it, looking good. I also believe that on that path to wisdom, that the practice of strategic foresight, its principles and practices, are a very essential faculty in the formation and cultivation of wisdom. They give us the clues and cues about how change works in the environment, how universal laws of change work through all living systems, so that when we can watch them and train our eyes, we can detect the movement and follow. This is different than just believing. We now have a relationship with the data coming in and interacting and cooperating and dancing with it as it emerges. So I feel like change literacy, which is my mission, should be embedded in education and training everywhere. It really releases us to know what it is that's coming at us. And it develops what I call the other AI, anticipatory intelligence. I start each day going to every window in my home, drawing the blinds, parting the curtains, and looking up at the sky. And I'm walking to detect the movement in the trees if it's there, leaves, birds, clouds. All of that I can see is connecting me to some life that is in me. And I say, good morning, beautiful. Good morning, beautiful, at every window. The awe of connection gets me connected. Here I am, here I am, here I am. So I say, here I am today. Good morning, beautifuls. Thank you for having me here. When we take that perspective, we are beginning to do what futurists do. The futurist perspective is one I often refer to as we are zoomologists. We zoom all the way out so that we can begin to have the overview effect of nested systems, how they move together, their interconnections, and we can now look for emergence. Oh, I see what's happening. Oh, that's happening too. Ooh. If we go out far enough, as Apollo 8 did, circling the moon, we actually get to look back on ourselves. The benefit of perspective, when we pull up and out of our world, in order to figure out what matters so that we can come back into it, and now take what matters into materializing it in our lives. We're hinging between these axes all of the time. And that good morning, beautiful, is that immediate. It takes no time at all to move up in our perspective. One of our teachers, Oprah Winfrey, says the greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change their future by merely changing their attitude or belief. But I would add to it that I say we can change our beliefs and our attitudes by first achieving altitude. That's critical. So today, in my mission to spread and scale change literacy, I'm going to take you on a ride. I'm going to impart to you some of the frameworks and theories of change so that you too can begin to make sense of what's happening in the world and how it works. It has its own structure and nature. Second half of this conversation will be, how do we then take those principles and practices and turn them on ourselves so that we are in accord with the environment? I have found that what we need to do as leaders, because what do leaders do? They're on the front edge, leading everybody else, trying to detect where should we go so that we can say, come along, I've got you. This is exactly what futurists do. Leaders need these skills to be able to say, I can see through the fog. I'm not quite sure what's there, but I know it's directionally right. And I can continue to read in such a way that we can adapt as we go. Another great teacher, Yogi Berra, said the future ain't what it used to be, one of his fabulous malapropisms. And I'm here to report that I've been doing this work since 2000. And initially, for those first 15 years, it was pretty organic to do 10 to 15, 20-year forecasts, in large part because the kinds of revolutions and disruptions that we were seeing were technological, they were in markets, they were in categories. But the systems that we lived in were fairly static, stable, and we could take it for granted. We didn't even think about it. But by around 2015, I was feeling it and was saying to clients, I don't think I can do 10 years anymore. In fact, it feels irresponsible. I will try to do 5, 2 is maybe a little bit more responsible. And I had throughout all this time been telling people that whatever is going on, turbulence is the main trend. And it's growing and growing. And so from speeches throughout all of these years, I often felt like a pilot issuing a message to the passengers saying, okay, folks, there's turbulence ahead. Please keep your seatbelt fastened. Nobody was listening. They were just kind of driving along, business as usual. Can you tell us the destination to more, please? Right? Just more, 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 without ever really considering that the world, in fact, was changing and we could feel it. And it wasn't until, of course, the pandemic hit that this turbulence ahead began to be, oh, it's here. And I was getting calls saying, can you talk to us about the future of work? Would you be able to say what the future of commercial real estate is going to be? Can you tell us where this is going to end? And I said, I can't do any of the above. I really cannot do any of the above. And for anyone who is going to try to do that with you, I would not feel trusting of it. But absolutely go take a look if you must. What I can do, though, what I can do is help you read Change and start to find that since the stability is not out there and is not coming anytime soon, it's only going to grow. It is critical that we have the stability located inside. And principles and practices of foresight can take us there. So this is the turn in my work after doing a lot of work, as Stephanie had mentioned, including with Google on the future of leadership, because they were sensing it too. Can we find out what leaders are going to need in the future? And it turned out that really all the things that the research showed were in the qualities that were already in my hands that foresight teaches us about perspective and complexity and emergence, the things that I know all of you work with. And there's another way of diving into it a little deeper. My book that came out in 2012 now, the critical thing here, it's still, I am always digging for the essence of things, though that which is universal. So what's in here is evergreen, and it's still very good, smart work. But I will tell you, the real takeaway is the subtitle. Distinguishing what changes from what doesn't change helps us all determine what's unfolding and coming next. And so I'm going to share with you how we make that distinction. What I'll tell you up front is that what doesn't change is what we anchor strategy to. It's what we anchor our own sense of stability to. And those things are that the forces and laws of change are constant. That human nature and needs never change. Their expression does, values in the culture do, our ways of meeting them do, but the core needs don't. And the third thing that doesn't change is what you were born to do. Your purpose. And in organizations, every organization is born with a point of view for what they are to do in a changing landscape as they go meet those needs in their unique way. So no, I can't tell you exactly where it's going to go. That business as usual with more please, more growth, more money, more ease. Have no idea. And we can feel it on ourselves, the need to figure things out, can't we? That we don't like to move until we've got a plan and we've kind of sussed it all out. By all means, do the research. However, the only way that we know anything is by moving. And so what we really are learning to do is to know what to follow and how to follow. We'll begin with the what to follow by taking a look at the forces of change. And this is a model that is my contribution to the field of foresight and to you. And it makes a distinction here between what trends are and what foresight is. So trends are what happens on the surface of our world. These are the current ideas and movements and issues that have our attention. They tell us what we care about. But every trend finds its root in the subterranean area that are these four forces: resources, technology, demographics, and governance that shape every society. Always have, always will. So even as we say, "Good morning, beautiful," and we see that another sun, we have gone another revolution to see how the sun come back at us, that on the grass there may be dew that is going to evaporate, that our breath goes in and out, that these cycles in society are also doing the same thing of order, disorder, reorder through these four forces. Birth, death, rebirth in every living system in societies happen through these four forces. We'll take a brief look. So I use this for scanning what is emerging in each of these force fields. We begin talking about how society is organized, is that what we do initially is we have to sustain life itself by finding other living forces in the natural environment. So water and land and minerals and plants and animals and sun, all of this. You know, this is primary. If our resources aren't supporting us, or if there is a cataclysmic challenge and crisis, we move, don't we? We migrate. So resources are primary, and we know that what's happening in this force field now has everything to do with an energy transition, with climate change, with resources being used, new ones being found, whether they be asteroids or on the moon or underwater. And this is what rules social change, because we all know that people go over to war over resources, and that when they are lacking, we have got to be innovative in new ways. We often do that through our power of invention with technology. So we invent tools primarily to harvest those resources and then create secondary product, such as how we make food, shelter, transportation, build nets, ultimately cars and rockets and so forth. It keeps building in terms of what's possible. We also make believe. What is it that we are dreaming of? And how will we tinker our way forward? What new tools can we create to make that possibility expand? So our capabilities expand as our technological capabilities. We know that there's a lot happening right here. And in particular, AI is dominant because it actually is embedded in almost every other technology that we have and is moving forward through biology itself, life itself, as well as how we create different means of production and so forth. In a group, we also consider who's there. How healthy is our group? And that has a lot to do with the distribution of age, with the distribution of gender, and how we can procreate, how we can have labor, how we can hold ourselves together. And so we see also that as we are facing changes in resources and technology, that very often people are moving because they are conflict refugees and climate refugees and economic refugees, or looking for more opportunity because we have the technology to be so mobile. And what's coming back? On the surface and the trends, we have a backlash now around immigration and immigration policies, for instance. So, which brings us to the human invention of governance which says that for any given group, including in your own families, we have rules of cooperation. In societies, this is the rule of law, it's also the rule of markets, and it is reactive to everything that is happening here. And as we can see, all of these forces are destabilizing, and governmental governance, all of that is not keeping up. And so there are shifts all over. But this tells us a little bit about, again, where we look, where it's coming from, and where we look to see the hints of where we're going. So, as living systems, including societies, also go through birth, death, and rebirth, order, disorder, and reorder, we find, and I really began to do much more of this work when the pandemic hit, going, I don't have any answers for you. The best I can do is to look even further out into the patterns of historical change. And what we know is that every 80 to 100 years, the world reorders itself. Global powers exchange, and that's usually because there's been social tensions that have been unaddressed for too long. There's often external threat as well, and they come together at such a time where it starts to break open, and our former systems no longer hold it. Unfortunately, for us, we are living in a time of disorder. And unfortunately, disorder, which is part of the creative process, we have to remember this, often includes the energies that nature has when it has a big bang, for instance, which is that it is combustible, that there are polarizations, that there is all kind of conflict and tension as it is making something new. And so we are here. We are here in this time. And as we begin to look just as signals of how do we see this in the past, we can go back just a century, really, 2 centuries here, and to see that at the dawn of industrialization, we saw big displacement, again, technology, new means of production. We had a lot of people who were flocking to the cities because they could no longer support themselves through agrarian lifestyles and saying, please, sir, can I have some more? Industrialization brought people off into cities that exploited their labor and had squalid living and work conditions. And so we saw industrialization also grow the wealth enormously. But we can begin to feel that there is some inequity brewing as a result of this change. So Karl Marx has his manifesto, unions begin to form. We also have now these manufacturing capabilities are mass producing arms. And so the empires that are going out are wanting to fight over who has dominion of the resources and materials they need to start to have this manufactured economy and grow with it. And as it's happening and that inequity is there, nationalism is coming up. And so it is, in fact, a Serbian nationalist who shoots the Duke, the Archduke Ferdinand, and starts World War I. And we see at the end of that war, the war to end all wars, that it toppled empires that had been holding on for a long time. But in those empires falling apart, all of the social unrest that it had been tamping down starts to rise again. And so it wasn't very long before that social unrest makes people uneasy and they are inviting some kind of stability. And we see Mussolini and Franco and Hitler and Stalin have an offer of what stability would look like. So they were taking advantage of those instabilities, and we saw around the world. And actually, when you count all the countries that were involved as allies and also as supporters and suppliers. There were more than 100 countries around the world involved in World War II, which lasted for 6 years. Enormous devastation, bombing throughout Europe, and of course the atom bomb, as Japan is also trying to get the hegemony in the Asia Pacific. And so it all, again, falls apart. And we have an opportunity to remake ourselves. What we see on the back end of that disorder is reorder. And for the first time, we are creating a way of being with some checks and balances and agreements to say never again. That was the phrase for World War II, never again will we allow one country to invade the border of another and just take them. We have all kinds of international alliances that will hold us to that. And we, again, the prosperity. We had more democracies in the world than ever. 2024 has been the record number of elections in 1 year on the planet in all of history. Didn't work out so well for the incumbents. But it is quite extraordinary. More peace, more stability, more prosperity, more generalized than ever before. Order, disorder, reorder. So in the wake of this time, in the last century, what we've seen, of course, is that progress has brought social progress with it, too. And that social progress is now coming back into a backlash. This is what we do. We swing. We kind of actually swing around, and then we swing back. And so the pandemic, all of this is not that static. It's all been moving for some time. But we can consider, for instance, the pandemic was the ball's been dropped. And here we are. And here we go. It's helpful to understand this as a natural cycle. I find it helpful. There's a kind of equanimity, which does not mean that anything's okay or feeling good, but it does at least allow us to hold it with some understanding that there is a process underway, and we're a part of it. We are not in an era of great change. We really, really, really need to get this. We are in a change of eras, and as we have learned from history, that these transitional periods are often decades long. Turbulence ahead. Fasten your seatbelts. Find your core. Know your work. Make your contributions. There's not much fixing to do, but there's a whole lot of contributions to make. So we are meeting this lovely Louise, who's in a park at the Googleplex in Mountain View, laying in sunny California, which as we go out into that high perspective, we begin to see its coastline and where it's situated among oceans and larger land masses until we get that beautiful blue marble. And as we continue to go out and we see the moon and Jupiter and all of the asteroids that are there that are a part of our solar system, we can see that the solar system and its gravity has some reach as it goes out till its very edge, where they have these Oort clouds, which are these icy masses that are the edge of sun's pull. But this system is a part of other systems that together begin to form a larger system, nested systems that spiral. The core pattern of life. And as those systems come together, we begin to see something that looks a lot like neural tissue and networks, and that its highest, best, it is all the same, uniform, but that this is fractal in nature. These are patterns that are self-organizing, nested systems, where there is complexity made simple. As we go back and see that all of this lives in each of us. As we meet Louise and now take a look and go into her eye and back to her retina, which is rich with blood vessels. And as we go into those blood vessels, we can see blood cells there. And we take a peer into what that looks like, and we begin to see some of the shapes and patterns that we just saw out into the cosmos. This winding spiral, groups of atoms that form these molecules, electrons that are alive and spinning and turning also in spiral clouds. We see the dark matter is also in there. As we ultimately get down to what we can see and understand so far today, is this quantum level of quarks. But it's all one pattern. Simple patterns that we talk about, but we don't always recognize and feel in our own lives. We don't always operate from this place. Sometimes we operate from here, about the way things should be. So as we drop down from space into this vertical space, which you all know so well, we feel this connection. We are attuned to a sense of belonging. It's where all of the immaterial knowing is. We may call it love. We may call it joy. We may call it equanimity, peace, trust, clarity. It lives here. But we also live in another dimension called time. And it is this time when we are dropped into this unique package of stardust and born, say, happy birthday, living in this life where it is between our birthday and some time in which it all ends for us. But we are meeting it out in little increments, measures of years and achievements and goals and wins and losses that helps us to feel a little small. So what we do is we go back up to get our space. We don't need more time, we need more space. And that as we do that, this life force, this spiral that remakes itself, often in smaller circles in each of our lives and our organizations, our projects, we see the same birth, death, rebirth, order, disorder, reorder. And that if we embrace it, it actually allows us to become more spacious and have the capacity to hold all of that change and to be in a dance with it. Stunning poem by William Stafford called Just the Way It Is. There is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you're pursuing, and you have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. There's nothing you can do to stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of that thread. This thread of life force, which is your purpose, it speaks to you. You can't figure it out, but you can follow it. You never let go. It doesn't change. And when you're in transitions, people will ask you, well, what are you going to do? How do you know? What's it going to look like? And you're like, no, but I just know that I'm following it. It's speaking to me. It is hard for others to see. Sometimes it's hard for you to listen to, but that's the work, isn't it? And that even as your life or the world, tragedies happen, this is where you come back to. It is the life force that we have, and you never let go of it. That thread that is unique to you is when you do some work, some listening, is what you can identify as your purpose. Very helpful to do that. It's very helpful to do this in organizations as well. Organizations have these life phases as well and go through chapters, as we all do. It takes different form. And form expires, but the life force will remake itself in some new form. And we have to hold all of that. In my case, I've had some very interesting chapters, and we can say hello to Cecily at 5 years old. 5-year-old Cecily had just moved from Lexington, Massachusetts to Evanston, Illinois, and one of my kindergarten friends lived a few doors down, Elise, and I would see Elise and her older sister Anne sometimes a few days a week come out to get into the car, and they had their hair in tight buns on their heads, and they were wearing leotards, and I was like that. There was some kind of resonance. I could feel myself like that. And so I asked to go to class. I don't know that I'd ever seen any dance before. But there was a recognition of an inner part of me, even at that young age. And so I went to Madame Farrar's School of Ballet and began my pliés, which continued for a very long time, whole career, in fact. And so that I, at 15, then went to the Interlochen Arts Academy to finish my junior and senior years, pre-professional training. I was beginning to be awakened to another part of my thread speaking to me, which was that I was a hungry mind. Somewhere along the way, I must have been reading books about Paris salons and Gertrude Stein, collecting people who were artists and thinkers who together were kind of formulating ideas that were moving society forward. And by the way, it was just super fun. I was like that. I really relate. I want to be living in that world, a part of it, if not being the Solonier. I knew that my career as a dancer was what I was after. It was my dream. But I also knew that I was going to do it my way. I was going to be a dancer and a Renaissance woman, if I could. So it came to be that pull had me leave my first job with the Omaha Ballet to go to the University of Illinois to get my Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Dance, where I had to take anatomy and physiology. Belief. I don't do that. I'm really bad at that. And yet, there I was in a cadaver lab going, this is incredible. It's incredible. Like, it's incredible. All of these systems, and I know them, I feel them, and they work like that. The design is extraordinary. And I also began to imagine that the question science is asking is the same that we had been asking and that I was asking as an artist. They're the same, just different approaches. More importantly, my understanding how the body works was something I could take into my training and into my teaching. It matters to know how things work, and I dig it. I'm good at it. I was so good at it that they offered me a graduate teaching assistantship while I was in my junior and senior years at college. So my career, again, these are these discoveries. You follow, you can't figure it out. Not only is it an opportunity, but parts of myself I didn't know were there. I went on to teach anatomy and ultimately clinical sciences, biochemistry, and so forth for over about 12 years. But in the meantime, I moved back to Chicago, where by this time I had a platinum mohawk, thank you very much, I had tossed away my pointe shoes, and I had a full-time contract with a modern dance company, which was not quite enough to support me. So I was teaching dance, kinesiology and ballet, and making my life the life I had always dreamt of. But I wasn't happy. What do you do when your dream comes true and you go, oh, now what? This isn't for me. And so I recognized that that Renaissance woman was speaking to me. You are happiest when? You are happiest when you are following your own mind, when you have a sense of agency, when you can actually have some stability, which I was never going to have as a dancer. And so I decided to become a doctor of chiropractic, where I could be a primary care physician that sanctioned the use of other modalities, such as Chinese medicine and classical homeopathy, which I loved both of. And so here I was going to, what I thought, be a doctor, still dance, have my other dream of like hanging out in Paris cafes and so forth. And I was making this clinic and discovering another discovery, that I dig business, that this is another creative endeavor. Like, this is bigger expression than I had ever done before. And I was really good at it, and bought another clinic. And soon I was teaching marketing classes and business classes. And so I sold my clinics in 1998, moved on to consulting brand strategy. Who are you? Where are you going? What's the context of where you're going? Trends. And I was like, as I shared at the beginning, it's not deep enough. And so I became a futurist. I began to study. I started the Push Institute, a nonprofit that was a think tank for change, a look at what was pushing the future in new directions, a big global conference that was named one of the 3 best executive conferences in the country. That work has shaped me. Every one of these stages has been evolutional and shaped me. I still have the soul of a dancer, the mind of a scientist, and the heart of a futurist that wants to serve and help other people meet reality and their own wisdom. We see this in our lives as we're going through different phases that we can recognize in ourselves, at work, and in society at large. That when we say, like that, there's some kind of pull that's pulling you forward that says, over here, please. We don't know what it's going to look like, but you are assured of a discovery about the world, discovery about yourself. And very often, this is a phase which I refer to as, are you my mother? Are you my mother? We're trying things on, trying to like, where do I fit? I know it's somewhere over here. As you're trying it out, and then at some point you really get it going and you're like, yeah, this is feeling good. And I'm in my mastery, and now I'm creative and I'm making things, and it's so generative and like, whoa, this is so fun. For however long that lasts. Because very often, as we grow, we get some other signals that go, a little bored maybe. Maybe a little judgy. Maybe a little resentful. All of the signs that the form no longer holds you, and that it is expiring, and that something in you wants to emerge further. And then there is ultimately a reckoning. There is a time at which you have to, and often you live with this for quite some time, and you renegotiate who you are now with your expression. And it may be that you're given who I am, my commitment is going to change to where I am currently, or I might take a big leap and do something entirely new, as you can see I've done several times. It's always a leap. It's always risky, and you can't figure it out in advance. You're relying on something that is going to catch you no matter what. These ideas of what's emerging, what's expiring are this simple. Emergence just feels like aliveness. Ooh, 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 more. Ah, I'm here. I am here in this experience. Expiration is like, okay. Yeah, it's good. No, it's not good. So you have to negotiate with yourself. How much aliveness? There are often practical decisions to make about that. But you can consider as a reflection, and we all have different spirals in different parts of our lives, and they coexist. But where are you experiencing the first edges of expiration? Where are you experiencing some kind of nudge that says, more of this, please support me. Please support me in taking singing lessons. However we do it, the way through, the way to follow is to hold tight to that purpose and play loose with tactics, to keep editing and taking in the information as it comes up. Yeah? I'm a dancer, so I talk about it as we dance with change, in the transitions. As it emerges, we meet it, we greet it, we take it. So much so that we can take a lesson from what the salmon do as they make their purposeful direction home upstream each season against all odds. And the way that they get there is they turn themselves to the currents and they accept from their belly the force of the current so that it propels them to leap into a new position. This is what life asks us to do, is to receive the force and allow it to work on us, to move us to what's next. In January of 2014, I received the final documents of my divorce papers. Who am I now? What's next? How do I make my way? I started going on dating apps for the first time ever. And in July that summer, I was going out to meet someone for a first date. We'd had a nice back and forth. He meets me outside of the speakeasy. I walk in. We have some nice cocktails, settle into a beautiful dinner, exchanging conversation, and at some point I said, I have something to tell you. I'm a little bit in pain today because I had a biopsy. They suspect breast cancer, and I'll find out tomorrow. I did have breast cancer, was the call that I got. And I immediately went, I am about to know and feel and see and experience something that I wouldn't any other way. Let's go. Let's go, whatever comes. It could be the end of my life, I don't know. I'm here for it, let's go. All of this work was paying off in that moment. And when I was then, in October 9th of 2014, 10 years, woke up after my first of 3 surgeries in the recovery room. And I'm coming to and like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I look under my gown and I see tape and missing body parts and tubes. And I get this rush that goes, I'm already whole. I'm already whole. The rest is just time. We have everything already. It doesn't matter what changes. I also, in my diagnosis, experienced, of course, people coming towards me saying, you matter. I love you. It was like the veil was lifted and there was a field of people from every part of my life around the world who said, I need you to know that you have mattered in my life. I walk through the world differently as a result. I know that love, even when it's not active in my life, those relationships are not all active all the time. I know that it is all there. We have everything we need already present. And those times when we let the force come, it is going to take us somewhere we wouldn't any other way. And we let it work on us. Because as Octavia Butler says, all that you touch, you change. You matter. All that you change is mutual. It changes you. And the only lasting truth is change. You know, all of these are cliches and aphorisms and truths that we live with, but we don't necessarily live by. And it is our practice to deepen it. This turbulence is real and it is increasing. The Accenture Global Index measured, it started in 2012, I believe, or 11. And it measured in the last stretch, right around the time that I was saying to clients, I can't do these forecasts in the same way. It had, just in that 5-year period, had increased by 200%. It's increasing from here. Keep your seatbelts on. Get your oxygen ready. Not for disaster, but for life. For growth, which is what this is all about. So as I shared with you, my mission is to spread change literacy. You know, it doesn't take much, it's not hard. The 4 forces, understanding cycles of change through history, shift our minds and our understanding. They also tell us what to scan and what to watch. But to embody this work is different, so that it moves from literacy to a fluency. And so for Lead Like a Futurist, based on my research, my work, there is now a program that has named 6 fluencies that map to 3 domains that are familiar to you, but in a different order: leading self, leading strategy, and leading culture. The 2 fluencies of leading self are reinvention, which is you've been introduced to. Imagine if everybody around you is speaking spiralese. It's amazing. What's expiring, what's emerging, all of that you're learning how to follow. Purpose is the other, because now we really know how to be the stability in the center of the storm. Leading strategy teaches foresight and innovation, because we want to be discerning about what the environment and incoming data is telling us. And again, be able to have the prowess to know what to follow. You now know how to follow, now what to follow. So that you can then turn to people and say, come along. We know how to bring you into this vision and this way of being. You belong here, and we know how to actually generate that belonging, and that every single one of these fluencies is paying off the capacity of wisdom. It all lives there. The humility, the discernment, and that ethical center of what's right to do even when there are no right answers. If you're interested, on leadlikeafuturist.com, there are some how-tos, how to think like a futurist, see like a futurist, and how to lead like a futurist. There's also, if you're interested in more, just contact me and let me know about that work that's being done both virtually and with groups. Because all of this is to give us a little bit more weight as we take our seat and put our oars in the water every day. And we row, and we row, and we row our boats gently down the stream. We don't know what's going to come around that corner. It could be a beautiful oasis. It could be off a cliff. But we do it merrily. Merrily, merrily. Because we believe in something, a dream worth having. Life is but this dream that we are making. I wish that for all of you, and that I know in the work that you do so beautifully, in the transformational work, that these tools sharpen your own edge. I thank you for your attention and your commitment in the work that you do. Thank you so much.